Well, the Supreme Court has done what none of us really thought could happen. They've ruled Obamacare constitutional. Now the fight has moved from the courts to the United States Congress. You can be sure starting January of 2013, if Republicans control the House and the Senate, we will be voting to repeal Obamacare once and for all.
That was Indiana Senate candidate Richard Murdoch posting a video online about the Supreme Court decision. Obviously, we don't have a decision yet, but that really shows how much people are gearing for some kind of action on this. We're joined now by Janet Adamy in the Washington Bureau of the Wall Street Journal. Janet, is Richard Murdoch embarrassed by having this video out there?
Well, Sudeep, I talked to his spokesman, and he said, you know, as the Boy Scouts say, be prepared. So he's like a lot of people in Washington right now who want to have some kind of quick response. They know how important it is when the decision comes out and how much is at stake, and they want to make sure they've got something they can put out quickly, which is prompting people to come up with these, you know, pre-done responses.
And Janet, what are the stakes here, not just obviously for the president, but for all of these candidates who are out there in the field? For Richard Murdoch to tape 4 videos on something like this, what are they feeling about this decision that's going to lead them to November?
Well, this is just such a big issue for both Democrats and Republicans. For Democrats, if the law is upheld, they'll have a real moment of vindication. And of course, even if part or all of it is struck down, it'll be a big setback for President Obama. At the same time, it'll shift some pressure on Republicans. They, for 3 years, have been saying just that the law should be repealed, that they'll have a replacement strategy, but every indication is there's no real replacement strategy that's a cohesive, a cohesive plan or cohesive strategy on Capitol Hill right now.
And you've outlined these 4 scenarios. There are obviously the binary ones that the entire law is upheld and the entire law is repealed. What happens in that middle ground where it gets a little fuzzier?
Yeah, there's 2 scenarios in the middle. One is that the court could just strike down the individual mandate and leave the rest of the law in place. And so Americans wouldn't be required to carry insurance or pay a fee, but the rest of the law would still stand. So there'd be expanded Medicaid coverage, subsidies to help lower earners buy coverage, health insurance exchanges. There's a kind of a variation on that rule, which is what the Obama administration argued for. And they said if you strike down the mandate, you should also strike down the provisions that are very closely associated with it. And that's the requirement that insurance companies provide coverage to all applicants. They don't charge them more because of their medical history. So another scenario that you could have is that basically the least popular part of the law is struck down, along with what is considered the most popular part of the law, which is this requirement that insurance companies take everybody regardless of pre-existing conditions.
And you're going to have candidates obviously campaigning on whatever pieces are upheld, if there are pieces that are upheld. Is the Obama administration bracing for a bad decision here? You mentioned in one of your stories the in-trade results, which don't look very good right now for where this case is going to come out.
Well, the Obama administration has been, very quiet about what they're planning for in terms of a ruling. Publicly, what the White House has said is that they're confident the law will be upheld. But what we did report last week is we know that there are contingency planning meetings taking place at the White House. And so we know it's not as though they're, going into this blind thinking just that the law is going to be upheld and there's no backup plan. There is some planning going on.
And there are press releases written in advance, maybe 7 or 8 versions from some of the groups you mentioned. What's some of the other kind of planning that's been done in advance here?
Well, as we go into vacation season, there are a number of people who are trying to figure out where they've got to cancel vacations. There was, a rumor that was kind of going around Washington that the decision was going to come today, and so a lot of people were banking on being able to, make their statements today and do some parsing tomorrow and getting out of town. So a number of sources I talked to are trying to figure out whether they've got to shift a vacation that may start later in the week.